Hey, how's it going? Seth here. And I wanted to show you something really interesting because ChatGPT may have just saved me about $200,000 in just a few minutes. Let me explain. So I was looking at buying this property here in Michigan with the idea of taking the existing building and kind of retrofitting it into some kind of an interior climate controlled self-storage and then using the parking lot for outdoor storage. And this property has been on the market for a while. As you can see, they just reduced the price. They actually reduced it by like $300,000. So this building is not selling. And one of the reasons why it's not selling is because whoever buys this building is going to have to put in a fire suppression system. It's just like this newer code thing that the township added. And the cost of that fire suppression system is $200,000 approximately. So it's a lot of money. And this is kind of an old dilapidated building. So like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for anybody who wants to buy this thing. So with the plan we had in mind, I mean, that could very easily be a deal killer. And for most people who buy this thing, and I was just thinking through this, is there any way around this? How could we not have to put in a fire suppression system? And I had some email correspondence going on back and forth with the fire inspector for this township to figure out why is this necessary? What are the rules that say this has to happen? And you can see his email right here. I'm going to blur some of this stuff out for the sake of his privacy. He kind of outlined the stuff from their fire code explaining why this would be necessary and what we would be doing for interior self-storage that's considered moderate hazard storage. And the reason that's considered sort of a fire hazard is because if people store things like furniture, or for that matter, like open containers of fuel, we have no idea what they're going to be storing in there. It's probably not going to start on fire, but it could, because we don't really sit there and say what they can and can't store. So we basically have to assume the worst. And scrolling down here, there's this section right here where he highlighted that an automatic sprinkler system shall be provided throughout all buildings containing a Group S1 occupancy, which is code for that storage use. So, if you're anything like me, you start reading this stuff and your mind just kind of turns into mush because I'm not good at reading this. And even if I was, I would probably miss details or not understand some of the nuance here. So I thought, you know what, rather than me trying to make sense of this, why don't I go to ChatGPT and figure this out? So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to go over here to ChatGPT and we're going to say, with the following fire code requirements, if I have a 42,000 square foot building, because this building is 42,641 square feet on 5.93 acres, what would need to be true, or how small would the building need to be for us to not have to add a fire suppression system? So I'm saying, here's what the code says, and then I paste in the code and let's see what it tells us here. So it says, to determine if your 42,000 square foot building can avoid the requirement for an automatic sprinkler system by using firewalls, you need to break down the building into smaller fire areas that each meet the criteria specified in the fire code. Here's a detailed look at the criteria. So it says a Group S1 fire area exceeds 12,000 square feet. So your building exceeds this limit with a single fire area of 40. Okay, I know that. To avoid sprinklers, you would need to create fire areas of 12,000 square feet or less. You can do this by building firewalls to divide the space into separate areas. So there you go. That's one way to solve our problem. So basically, if we scroll down here, it says the answer is, for a 42,000 square foot building, use firewalls to create separate fire areas. So basically, this is saying you don't necessarily have to build that fire suppression system if you put in firewalls, making each area 12,000 square feet or less. So it's just like a really good alternative idea that, I may or may not have thought of that on my own. And a lot of people looking at this, they may just see it in black and white and say, oh, great, we got to build this $200,000 system now. It's a deal killer. When not really. If you know how to think outside the box, or even if you don't, ChatGPT can think outside the box for you. So I took this information and I went back to this guy and said, hey, thanks for reaching out about those details. And I said, hypothetically speaking, if we divided the existing building into multiple fire areas using firewalls, and if each area is less than 12,000 square feet, might that negate the need for a fire suppression system per condition 1? Or another option might be to just raise a portion of the building, so just tear some of it down and use a smaller section for this self-storage concept, assuming whatever portions of the building remain are less than 12,000 square feet. And he kind of gets back to me with the price, confirming it's about $200,000. But he said, I do believe you're on the right form of thinking on this. I just want to double check prior to saying that for sure. I'll also check that the building inspector doesn't have an issue with this either. And just so you know, I did end up getting on a call with him and the building inspector, and they did eventually confirm that yes, my line of thinking was correct. Or should I say ChatGPT's line of thinking was correct. So This is just one of millions of use case scenarios that real estate investors can use to come up with new ideas and potentially save a ton of money that may not necessarily be obvious to yourself or to the person who is telling you the rules. And if you know how to just think through the lens of ChatGPT or Claude or whatever chatbot you know of and are familiar with, understanding how to present the relevant information and then let them come up with ideas for you, it's a great way to find opportunities to save a ton of money or sometimes even make a ton of money that you just wouldn't have on your own. So this falls under the ideation umbrella that these chatbots are so stinking useful for. And again, a lot of the world still is not using this kind of thing on a regular basis. So it's kind of funny, like they might look at you as like, wow, you're a genius for thinking of this, when it's like, I didn't think of it. I'm just using the same technology that everybody has access to. The only difference is I'm choosing to use it, whereas you're either not aware of it at all or you are, but you don't realize it can be used for this. So if this is something of interest to you, you should know that my friend Mike Balcom and I are putting on a 4-week guided course called ChatGPT Unleashed. And you can sign up for this from now through the first full week of July. But this is going to be a guided course where we show you tons of ideas like this on how you can use ChatGPT to get some amazing ideas and huge outsized results, and using this resource that is truly smarter than any human being on the planet. And it's incredibly inexpensive, in some cases even free. It's just a question of, do you have the mind and the ideas to know how you can use this? Chances are, even if you are already using it, you may not be fully aware of all the ways it can be put to good use. So if you're interested in this, just go to retipster.com/chat. That's CHAT. I'm going to have a link to that beneath this video if you want to check it out. You should totally join us. This is going to be awesome. All the sessions are going to be recorded, so even if you can't make it to the live sessions as we walk you through this stuff, you can always follow up on the recordings and you'll have access to those. And if you have any great ideas on how you have used ChatGPT or other AI technology to get huge outsized results in your business, definitely leave a comment below. I want to know about it, and so does everybody else. Thanks for watching. I hope we'll see you in the course, and I'll talk to you next time.